Knobeco asked for Onitaset Kumat's opinion on a humorous expression of hate. Onitaset Kumat responds by simplifying Occidental motivators to hate, fear, jealousy, and fun. Afterward, he defines love and instructs on the benefits of African people loving everyone. In this dialogue, notions of the importance of African women, the essence of God-fearfulness, and the contradiction of love are discussed. Knobeco. It's comical to hear the phrase, "The only two people that I hate are my ex and white people." However, Onitaset Kumat, I will to know your opinion on the phrase. Some have said that hate is too strong a word to designate to an ex-girlfriend, especially since relationships ascend to girlfriend-boyfriend status through affirmations of love. Others would opine that a hatefulness to whites is itself harmful. Despite the crimes of their ancestors, many would intimate. How do you view the comedy therein? Onitaset Kumat. In the English canon and the Occidental tradition, such a phrase is humorous for its use of the English language. It's the classic fooled expectations, though it also has a larger social implication that ought to be addressed, namely, whether an African should hate. The sad reality being that the African hates and hates herself. Knobeco. What would you say on the topic of hating white people, the subject of the quotation? Onitaset Kumat. Addressing the hatred of self supersedes addressing the hatred of others. However, it is worth noting that white people themselves hate themselves. A fundamental of Occidentalism is xenophobia and a hatred of humanity. African hatred in the modern era revolves around our interaction with and education in the Occidental tradition. That said, it's worth simplifying the discussion and simplifying the analysis. Let us speak of the four motivators of Occidental society: fear, hatred, jealousy, and fun. Knobeco. And love? Onitaset Kumat. No, brother Knobeco. Occidentalism doesn't include love. Such is an aspect of originalism, yet I can speak to that later. Let us first distinguish these four motivators. Fear has an interesting role in Occidental society. It appears that Europeans give deference to those whom instill fear into them. It's possibly the reason as to why a common compliment to a man or woman isn't God-loving, but God-fearing. Forsooth, peace relates with a fear of war, according to prominent European philosophers. Not peculiarly, fear controls the European, and is the European's main instrument of control, something we Africans know very familiarly. Hatred nearly seems to fit as part fear and part jealousy, but it merits its own distinction. Hatred is more a method than an end result. For instance, an African mother can discipline her child with a whip, but a European would discipline an enslaved person with a whip, and though both are whipping, one is done out of love, the other hatred. Hate inspires Europeans to lynch Africans. Terribly, hate, self-hate at that, leads Africans to kill Africans. This is out of Occidentalism. Jealousy would be the root of greed, but also speaks to the industries of European people. Frankly, Africans are beautiful, creative, and talented. Europeans know as much. African people have the richest history. This known, a large part of the Europeans' belligerence toward the African is rooted in jealousy. But it's not simply the Europeans' jealousy toward Africans. Quite naturally, the European is jealous of other Europeans. This accusation reasonably flies in Occidental debates. For instance, the Wall Street protesters are accused of being jealous of the super-rich, a reasonable suspicion given the dearth of analysis otherwise. Finally, fun. This part of Occidentalism may be the most adopted by African people. Indeed, it was through fun that this topic of love and hate seemed most perplexing. Personally, I had been accosted by a snow thrower, and in wondering his motivation for these actions, either love or hate, I reasoned neither and came across fun. Fun is the domain of sex in Occidentalism, as opposed to love as we can expect from originalism. It is through this idea of fun that Europeans are especially apt to do silly and self-hurting things. Africans, of course, follow suit. These four motivators known, we simplify Occidentalism insofar as we will to explain their behaviors and actions toward us and our adopted behaviors and actions. The most poignant aspect of these four motivators is their exclusion of love. It is for this exclusion that African people can dance and bop to songs asking, "What is love?" and find the inquiry profound, when truly the profundity is in the world's most loving people, perplexing over their very nature. We return then to the topic. African people hate and hate African people. The reasoning being our immersion in European philosophies, where Europeans are pulled between four separate motivators: fear, hate, jealousy, and fun. It's through one of these four why the European acts how he does at all levels, whether purchasing Chinese wares, censoring facts about Nigerian film, watching college basketball, or excluding Turkey but including Israel in the European Cup. The only reasonable response to this arrangement of society lies in learning what is love. Knobeco. So what is love? Onitaset Kumat. It is an aspect intrinsic to the African psyche, but more definitively, love is the motivator for morality, which of course returns to the fundamental problem with Occidentalism, the ignorance of what morality is. This ignorance on morality is shared by Orientalism. Either way, Generally speaking, love does right. This spoken. The earlier mentioned whipping mother whips right when she disciplines the child against the child's self-harm or even self-hatred. This is an instructive realization, given that love oftentimes becomes conflated with peacefulness and nonviolence. You see, as spoken in Letter from Marilyn, a love punishes. This then returns us to another article of my interest, the lynching of Lee Walker. It appears that Lee Walker was an African man who, in a fit of hunger, tossed a white woman from her wagon and dragged her some distance before fleeing. He performed no indecency, but here's what Ida B. Wells Barnett commented thereon in Lynch Laws. He was duly arrested. It is later that whites, out of hatred, enter the prison and murder Lee Walker. But it's worth considering that as far as the arrest was concerned, it was, according to Ida B. Wells Barnett, due. Now, this is arguable, yet one can clearly see that Ida B. Wells Barnett, who writes out of a distaste of lynchings, expresses a shared solution, in some ways, to people hateful